Welcome to the show, guys. This is Ruben Greth. I got Shane Cook. I just met him the other day at Mary Sayers' event at the Arizona Real Estate Investors Association conference room, where he was talking about something of interest to me, which is crowdfunding, because I'm always looking to find out and share with the audience information about raising money in different ways, specifically for real estate, but we'll delve into some other topics later. But Shane, so when I saw you guys at Mary's event, you guys started talking about real estate investing traditionally for fix and flip properties. Is that the case?
Yeah, that's the current niche we're working in.
Okay, how long have you been doing that?
My first fix and flip property was probably in 1998.
I've been investing for 20 years.
Yeah, I've been saying that a little bit the last year. It kind of seems unreal to have been doing it for 20 years. It's been my whole professional life. Straight out of college, kind of tried not to go into business with Dad, but after about 6 months, we ended up working together, and a local family, invested about $400K with us. We had promised to just pay them 12% flat on that $400K. They had a relationship with my father that started as opposite sides of a mediation table. So after they were done with that mediation, they developed a relationship with my dad from the other side of the mediation table. They liked how he handled things. And he helped handle some of their other real estate stuff. And so they liked what we were planning on doing, which was fix and flip houses. And they wrote that check, and we went out and started buying houses at the auction and just fix and flipping.
So what did you tell that person to convince them to give you $400,000 at 12% interest?
So I'd like to say at that point in time it was me, but I was green, like real green. So I had nothing to do with that check, My father, Joe, comes from the financial planning and services industry, stockbroker, throughout the 70s and early 80s. He did really well in that business, did some equity raising at Piper Jaffray and Hopwood in the early 80s and late 70s. And we moved to Arizona in the mid 80s. And he did a little bit of more stock brokerage and equity type of investing that way. But in the late 80s, bought a big development out of the RTC Trust. And he's just a real estate trust corporation sales. And so he's just been in financial matters or in investing for a long time. And so when these folks, had a relationship with him and he felt like he could pitch the $400,000, he told them exactly that. We're going to go out and buy houses. We're going to use your money to buy, fix, and sell houses, and we'll pay you 12% on them all the time. So although your money's not, secured in this conversation, each time we buy a house, you'll get a deed of trust against the house, and your money will be secured by the property that we purchase, And so that's how that conversation and that process started for my first business that lasted almost 10 years and was based on the fix and flip model, even though we evolved to being hard money lenders and really wholesalers across multiple states.
And you're still a hard money lender and a wholesaler, or have you just focused on one specific niche of investing?
I would say that Joe, my father, he's probably a hard money lender still and has relationships with lots of hard money lenders. He's done some consulting when there's been different fraud that happened, in the crash. He consulted with some local hard money lenders. So we're still connected in that way. I don't personally go out and lend my own funds on properties. I do a lot of the underwriting and stuff for my father and other investors because my expertise is really the real estate side of things. They've got more the cash flush situation. When the market crashed, I lost everything, all my businesses, everything when the recession hit. So I kind of reformatted who I am and what I'm doing, and these investments now are putting the equity back in my pocket.
Okay, so walk us through your history. You do your first deal. What was your role with that first $400,000 that your dad raised, and then take us through the evolution of how you've become what you are today and what you've gone through in the process.
So I was really green, right? It was just looking at houses and trying to understand how they were valuing houses. I graduated from college with a business management degree, and I went to school for a marine biology study. So I'm kind of a science-based, data-driven investor. I self-call myself a data dork a lot of times in presentations. I like data and use data to substantiate where my decisions are going and where we invest funds. So really it was just to help locate and find the houses and then build the systems to repair them. We didn't have any grand scheme that we were trying to do lots of things, but we knew we would take more than just me and my dad to do this stuff, because he still had these other development projects, and I didn't know all the ways to fix a house at that point in time. So over probably the next 2 years, I learned how to hire and manage people to fix our homes, and then eventually lead crews to fix our homes, because we bought enough that I could employ other people. By the time 2001 rolled around, I was managing about $2.5 million of inventory at any one time. That could be 8 to 10 houses, maybe plus or minus, at that time. We were acquiring them from the foreclosure auctions, so we were now tracking the foreclosure auction data. I built all of these systems, or led the teams to build all of these systems, because it was really my business to run for the most part after about the second year. So as it evolved, we tracked all the auctions in Maricopa County, attended all the sales in Maricopa County, either ourselves or through partners, inspected all the houses that we thought we might bid on, became the successful bidder with the money Joe was raising through Reg D offerings, full SEC certified registered Regulation D offerings, where he would put together a fund and offer to pay 12 to 15% annually on your invested money in these Reg D offerings. Now, you had to be an accredited investor to invest in these for the most part. So we were talking mostly to people who had $1 million net worth and could invest, 50 to 500 or $1 million, 500,000 or $1 million at a time. So that pool of funds between 1998 and about 2008 grew to $20 million. We got to the point where we understood the system well enough that we also had about $40 million of bank lines of credit. And after we would purchase the house at auction, we would sell it to another investor who would put 10 or 20% down, and then we would create the paper to that, and then the institution would come and participate in the bottom 70% of the risk. So it was highly leveraged, and we were taking the top end of the risk. And that worked really well and made a good arbitrage. The years it was running really well, but when things started not going well, it also collapses quickly. So by 2008, I had done every part of this business or by 2006, I'd done every part of this business and opened it in 5 or 6 markets. We started in Maricopa County. I opened Salt Lake, Dallas, Idaho, Portland, and Tucson. We pretty much did everything between Phoenix and Tucson in Arizona. And we almost repaired nothing at that point in time. I mean, I probably only repaired houses for the first 3 years, and then we started wholesaling and lending mostly. Built a website. When we were wholesaling through our website, nobody else was at that time. It was I think it was 2001 when I built our first website to say, hey, sign up here to get emails when we buy a house at auction that we're reselling. You'll get first notice of how much it costs, and the first one in my door with $5,000 non-refundable gets the house, and if you need us to, we'll lend money on it. And at first people were like, no way, I'm bringing you $5,000. And by like the end of 2003, they were banging at my door to get the $5,000 to me first. So we kind of trained the market to get used to these emails that you see all the time now that say, I have this wholesale deal. Well, in Arizona, that was done, but it was done on the phone by lots of people down at the foreclosure auctions, and they were effective at it, just nobody was doing it online. So I moved it online in Arizona, and that helped our business a lot. And so I learned how to build these systems based on the capital that we raised, and we kept that capital working all we could. Come late 2006, early 2007, our investors start buying properties from us, fixing them up, and then walking away from them. and it just doesn't make any sense, right? And we started foreclosing on property as soon as we could. We had a policy before then to work with the investor because everybody's trying to get through the house, sell the asset, pay back all the due, make sure, if there's profit there, that the profit gets distributed. But when it starts sliding and they walk away, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And we just started foreclosing as quick as possible on everything we could. So I've done the flip side of that business. As for 2 years, I managed assets in a sliding market. We had discussions about sending money back to investors, and I would take properties back that we would have to fix or put copper back in because somebody stole all the copper out of, or just liquidate because it was an asset we had to liquidate. And that was happening in multiple states because we were active in multiple states. We were definitely most focused in Maricopa County. But it was happening in multiple states. So that was the first way we really raised money, and that was to say, hey, here's this Reg D offering where we have the flexibility to invest in these sets of assets, mostly distressed assets that were houses that we would reposition and then also resell. Some of the other bigger distressed assets we touched were like we bought a defunct grocery store and a defunct movie theater and turned it into a charter school. That was interesting. That was pretty early on. One of the bigger projects that hurt us quite a bit was we accumulated over half of like 650 condos in a condo complex and brought in the special assessments on each of the dues paying members to put in new roads and updo the security and paint everything. And we went to HOA meetings where there were a lot of angry people because not all of them could afford those dues, but we were repositioning that asset, and what it required was contribution from all of the HOA members, and we had bought enough to control the HOA, so they weren't very happy about that. But that was a way to fund that reposition on top of it. So we'd done, at auction, we bought a golf course, the Pepperwood Golf Course in Tempe, that we bought and held long enough for the developers that we had it pre-sold to get it rezoned for what they wanted it to, and then they took it over. So we just bought and done a lot of weird stuff, and the way we raised that money allowed us that flexibility, whether we saw it at auction or saw that opportunity somewhere else.
So that money that you had raised, you were offering a 12% return or some designated return, and what was your agreement with the investors that it didn't matter where you put the money, what type of investment, or how did you work that?
It was spelled out in the offering, and it was mostly that we had the freedom to invest in distressed assets, distressed real estate assets specifically. And the early offering probably said in Maricopa County, and the later offerings probably said, in the multiple markets we were operating in. I think over time we had 3 or 4 separate Reg D offerings. They would be open for a year or two to investment, and then they'd close. And then they'd be open. A new one would come open for a year or two, and then it'd close.
So from the crash, where has your business gone since then? You said that you lost all of your business. You're talking about your real estate businesses, right?
I lost everything. My house foreclosed. I had a positive $2 million tax return one year and a negative $2.5 million tax return, the next year or 2 years later. So my dad ended up, filing bankruptcy, a reorganization bankruptcy, and fighting that process till like almost 2010, I think. Getting that whole thing out of the way, and mostly that process ended up protecting me from personal bankruptcy, but I pretty much lost everything. So from 2009 to 2011, our creative way to fund deals, you met Jamie. So Jamie and I got together and we did property solutions providers. And what we were doing is we were soliciting people who were deep underwater in their homes to work on a short sale with them and for them, but also that we would reserve the rights to market it for sale as well, at the same time that we were negotiating the short sale process. And so in essence, we were trying to do, A to C transactions with full disclosure, knowing that the buyer was the one who was going to fund the transaction. And in essence, we were the interim buyer investor who was going to do all the short sale work and make it so that the buyer, eventually that the bank would agree to allowing the buyer to buy it where the buyer is willing to buy it, and the seller, was willing to take the consequences of the short sale, whatever they might be. At that point in time, there was no state or federal relief of debt tax ramification for that move in our state. So there were a lot of people who didn't see any reason why to stay in a deep underwater house. And a lot of people, had walked away from vacant houses and were just like, fine, if you can get my name off of it, great, thank you. So we, in essence, for 2 or 3 years, worked raising capital by finding end buyers who would fund the transaction that we had already captured, and then created the value by negotiating the short sale. And I had my real estate license at that point in time as well. So I was mostly selling REO real estate, as I had sold my own real estate, owned my own foreclosed property in my bank. I learned to do that for other people, and my broker had developed a relationship with other people that had like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac access to some of the electronic systems that they were doing their short sales and their REOs on. So I had access to those platforms and made my first few years as a realtor and on my own investor by raising money that way, and then paying my bills by selling bank-owned properties for different Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac lenders that my broker had made a relationship with.
So you did that till about 2010?
2010 with the short sale stuff, and then the writing was on the wall there that I kind of needed to figure out what I was going to do, and I decided from that point on to concentrate on being a professional full-time realtor, use all those skills I had learned buying and selling real estate to help other people I know buy and sell their homes or investments. So for a couple of years, mostly just helping people buy homes and rental houses and small duplexes and stuff like that. And then really started focusing in 2012 on expanding my expertise in real estate, not just to the residential people I know and friends and family, but to investors and commercial transactions, and reaching out to realtors that I know both locally and that I serve with on the regional and national level, and letting them know that I do commercial and investment stuff here, and just building that repertoire. I'm in my third CCIM class. I'm a certified international property specialist. I take a ridiculous amount of education. So the last 3 or 4 years as a full-time professional realtor, that's my business. The residential real estate referral business has become my solid go-to all the time. It always generates the consistent income if you pay it the attention you need to. I've got a system that we work mostly by events and sit down one-on-ones with my clients and things like that. And then I do a different set of a similar type of stuff for my commercial investment stuff. And my dad and I started doing PhixNPhlips again about 5 years ago, just by ourselves, 1 and 2 here and there. And we've always wanted to do business together again, here and there. We like doing business. It was rough at points and I left at points, but now we get along really well, and we understand each other's perspective well. So about 2 years ago, we started talking about crowdfunding because we'd heard about it as another way to fund our love of real estate and real estate investing here in the Phoenix metropolitan area. So we decided, I guess we decided late last year that we were going to give it a shot this year and develop a crowdfunding platform and try to test some projects on that platform and see if we couldn't build another digital platform that allowed people to invest maybe in a new way that they hadn't seen before or used before. And this one, instead of allowing us to do it mostly just to accredited investors, at the current level we're operating with Arizona residents. As long as you're an Arizona resident, you can invest $1,000. So there's no need to have $1 million net worth to be able to access some of the projects we access just in a different way than we used to do it. And our goal is still to provide that, really we're looking to provide a 10 to 18% return, 12 to 15 in our history. Our experience has kind of been the sweet spot. Investors like secured real estate that generates a 12 to 15% return. And so we're working on different ways to try and present that to the marketplace with fix and flip. And, right now we're on our third project, seeing where that goes. And they've all been some kind of a fix and flip. One of them, we actually tore the whole house down except for the fireplace and we started over. But the other two, we're tearing off small portions and adding additional square feet.
So for somebody that wanted to do their own crowdfunding, where can they get the information to follow that same path so that they can fund their fix and flips? Or would you even recommend it? What's your experience with it so far?
So my first recommendation would be talk to a lawyer who knows how to do it. The documents we use were drafted by us first. And by us, I really mean by Joe. I've reviewed them and read them, gave my input back and forth, but he's really the author because he has, I have 20 years experience real estate investing in Arizona. He's got like 30 plus years as an investor, financial planner, equity raiser. He's helped author, review, and write Regulation D offerings and investment prospectus and LLC management agreements. And so he's got a deep knowledge of these type of documents, and him and I did research. He talked to some lawyers in Arizona and some lawyers in California. And, I acted like an investor and got some documents from other crowdfunding investors throughout the state and the country. And I looked at their documents, and he looked at his documents that he was able to talk to a lawyer about. We put together something we were really confident in that would work and had him final reviewed by a lawyer. That cost us a lot less than having a lawyer do it. But my recommendation would be to do your research and speak with a lawyer who understands equity raising laws, crowdfunding laws, SEC type regulation. Because my partner does, so I have a high degree of confidence there. And then we have the oversight at the end by different lawyers.
Okay, awesome. That was phenomenal. So
you can find the statutes and stuff online. Like you could read Arizona's crowdfunding statute online. It's like a 5-page document. So, and it's kind of loose. So there's interpretation there, but you certainly don't want to be the one on the wrong side of the interpretation come down, because then it's fraud or it's financial fraud. So you want to do your research if you're going to put it together. It's once you do your research and you have your documentation, it's a submission and review process by the state.
Have you come across some people that have run into legal trouble doing capital raises incorrectly?
So I think no, not really. I mean, I've been lucky enough to be deposed by the Arizona Corporation Commission, because when you raise $20 million as a company and a bunch of it disappears, over 3 or 4 years, they want to see that there wasn't fraud involved with that, So I've been involved in depositions and nothing ever came of them. So we had investors, we had one investor towards the end who was willing to write $10 to $20 million credit facility for us. He wasn't quite a billionaire, but he hung out with billionaires. And so towards the end, and he was the most thorough, high-level paper requirement person our system have ever dealt with. And we dealt with banks that were regulated by the FDIC regulator. We did it very much the right way to attract very much the right type of people, because we were trying to do it big and in multiple states. I think people underestimate all the time the legalities involved with raising money and run the risk of some type of repercussions. But I'm not sure how much it's policed until you get into the bigger numbers. Till many more people scream about it with larger zeros, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so back to your last three fix and flips. You started the first one with your dad. You're planning on working with him going forward?
Yeah.
One of your team members.
He's my equity partner. We make great decisions together.
So how did you do your first deal? What were the numbers on it? What did you guys make on it? And then walk us through how it's progressed into your next deal and where you want to see it grow.
So we set up in the beginning to kind of front load our pipeline. So these three first deals are what we have, and none of them finished before the third one is going to finish. So in essence, I ran one offering for 2 months, another offering for 2 months, and another offering for 2 months. I'm not quite sure they were all 2 months, but in essence, that's what we did at each of these crowdfundings. And the first one is Sales Drive. Sales Drive is not complete yet. So we went through that raise. It was our first one. We didn't raise a bunch of money, but we have a handful of investors who put money in. And we fund, like I said, we're doing these projects anyway, and this is a new tool for us, being the crowdfunding platform. So we're willing to put it out there, fund the project, take it clear to the end, even if 1 or 2 people just invest, because this is how we're going to test this platform. And so then that one closed. It was I don't have it right in front of me, but it was like a $630,000 raise or something like that. And so we were raising, if you invest in $1,000 increments, there could be 630 different individual investors. Doesn't usually work out that way. Usually some people, an accredited investor or 2 can invest whatever they want still. So an accredited investor could still come write a $100,000 check or something. And you could have a handful of $1,000, $2,000, or $5,000 checks, things like that. So in our first investment, we had, a $10,000 investor and a couple smaller investors, and then Joe funded the rest of it. And we had some hiccups with the city in one of their mistakes, and then we had to apply for a variance. So it's taken a little bit longer than we wanted it to, but it's currently, I did some video last week. We flew trusses about 2 weeks ago. So the roof's on. I was there last week, and the AC ducts were going in. And so we should probably have that one hopefully sold come the end of this year, November, December-ish. And we'll see how that ends up in a return, to our investors. We have it listed on the MLS for $948 right now. We'll see where that ends up. It would be a great project to have good return on, so that come December, January, we can start showing that the projects are doing what we say they are, regardless of the number of investors.
So you fund your deal. You're able to fund your deals regardless of if people invest with you or not. Is that correct?
These first 3, we've got it set up that way, and our goal is long-term that on our platform that's the case. We're only doing deals we put our own money in, and we're not. I'm not letting other people post on my platform. So our goal is that you like and understand our ability to underwrite and invest in opportunity, and hopefully that we can keep on providing that. And if at any one time I can't fund the whole deal on the crowdfunding platform, that we have the capital to take it down and finish it anyway.
So then essentially you're trying to build momentum from these first few deals so that you can get brand awareness, let the public know what you're doing, so that way when your 4th, 5th deals and possibly long term, you can continue to get more and more and more of these investors using the crowdfunding platform. Is that right?
Absolutely. Right now we do it just with fix and flips, just in Arizona. The next project we have lined up will probably be more like a light industrial multi-use flex type building. We kind of have that in the works. Not far enough along to say for sure it's going to happen, but we kind of have that in the works. So hopefully come December-ish, project number 1 is wrapping up and starting to show some return to the investors, and we can sit down and maybe talk with some of the investors and ask them why they invested in their experience and different things like that, so that we can use it moving on into what I would call the 4th and beyond raise. Raise number 2, we decided to partner up with some investor friends. I've known Tricia Manera and Jim Manera here in the Southeast Valley since 2012, when I went to the Southeast Valley Regional Association Realtors Leadership Program with Tricia. And so they had a project not too far from the project we were already working on. This one's, the first one is 35th Street in Campbell. The second one is 22nd Street and Thomas. So they had another project. This one is somebody did a really weird addition on this property, and the space doesn't make sense inside. There was a good opportunity for them to purchase it, and we had some time to still set up the crowdfunding deal. So we went to them and said, okay, kind of the same thing. Let's partner on it. Let's sponsor it. We'll guarantee the funds to fund the deal if the crowdfunding thing doesn't work, but help us do this project with you through the crowdfunding platform. So that was our second project on Earl Drive, and its funding ended late last month. And so again, we had a handful of different investors and a repeat investor. So we keep adding to our investor list. We're a little bit behind on that one because most of the professionals, being the engineers and the draftsmen and the architect and stuff, are really busy right now. There's a shortage of inventory in Arizona, if you haven't noticed, and these guys are working their tails off. So we should be submitting plans to the City of Phoenix on the second project this week. And like I said, that's less construction. So hopefully we're wrapping up construction of that one about December-ish, and that one closes late this year, early next year from a resale. And then we get to show what type of return it made as well.
Nice. So what is your strategy for finding people to invest with you? I mean, how are you marketing the crowdfund? Is it through online? Is it person to person, calling people on the phone? What's your best practice? What's working the best so far? What do you want to do with it?
So some of all of that, the best is working is the face-to-face. I think we did one presentation with Tricia at Fortune Builders that ended up in 2 investors out of a room of like 10 or 15 people. That's a pretty good ratio. I like the opportunity to speak face-to-face, but I think also stuff like this is going to continue to help build momentum as well. It helps just have a conversation. People have these questions. It helps validate what we're doing and what's going on. So I keep reaching out to try and do in-person presentations to small investment groups or larger investment clubs. I did an interview today, a Facebook Live. It was more of a market update than specifically crowdfunding, but I try to interact like you and I are, Ruben, too, as much as I can. Get on somebody's podcast or invite somebody to interact in our videos. So the other thing we do is we try to do a lot of update videos, both produced and just me walking through doing the live thing on my phone, so that they have some of both. I think, last week we finished up the professional time lapse of our flying the trusses. So when we were flying trusses out at sales, I had our videographer out there with their drone and doing some time lapse. And then I did a quick update video segment while they were there as well. So that all kind of is coming out this week as we taped and recorded it last week. We try to interact that with the, organic live, me walking the site with my phone, turning it around so you can see the guys working on the site, stuff like that. And then anybody who connects with us goes into a CRM. And Jamie, who you met, is the operations guy. So Jamie, they get texts from our system through Jamie. They get emails through our system, and if they respond to that, most of it's Jamie interacting. And then he also follows up with phone calls to people who start the investment and maybe don't finish. The third-party escrow platform lets us know when people start and don't get all their information put in there, or done just a couple of phone calls too. People reach out to me and say, can I call you and just have a conversation with you about what you're doing? So I think that relationship building is clearly the way I run my real estate business. It's also going to be the best way to raise funds.
Yeah.
And so that's what we like, but we do think that as it gains momentum and the list starts to reinvest, that that face-to-face will be more of a kind of getting in touch with people you invest with regularly and them spreading the word about it. So the third offering is the one we're currently working on, Tremaine Drive. It's in Chandler. It's on an acre lot, which I love. It's near Arizona Avenue in Guadalupe, so it's really hard to find Chandler or Mesa acreage that you can have horses on that's this close to the 60 and this close actually to, you know, getting downtown Phoenix. From Arizona Avenue in Chandler, no traffic here and down here at the airport in 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So that's really nice. This one, again, had a two-car garage that they did an illegal master bathroom and bedroom addition inside the two-car garage on a septic property.
Whoa.
So it's interesting. There's wires dangling and stuff. I'm not sure people would actually live in it. It was also vacated for some period of time and was a bank-owned property and was squatted for a period of time. So it's a nasty little house, you know, and it's been neglected for quite some time. But it has opportunity in that we're going to put the garage back to a garage and, you know, remove some roof and add some square footage and fix the septic that's old and trashed anyway, and end up with a nice, like 2,200 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom